Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today I'm sitting on the floor playing with my new toys. We recently received a donation of a little over 300 model ships from Wayne Smith. Wayne is the master model builder for Alnavco, and Alnavco is a company with a cool history that we're only going to touch on briefly in this video. I just want to do an introduction to this collection. We'll probably come back to it in the future in some other stuff. So Wayne makes the master models, which are the usually brass models that are then pressed in rubber. And we actually have one of those here to create the molds that then more of these poured lead models will be made out of. And this is one of those art forms that goes well back past World War II, but was very important during World War II, that things like 3D printing are starting to erase today. And so we were very excited when Wayne reached out to us with his model collection. Now, why are these models important? The majority of the models in this collection are 1/1200 scale. 100 feet equals 1 inch. So an Iowa-class battleship that's almost 900 feet long is 9 inches long. Let's see if we can find Iowa-class battleship in here. Here's New Jersey herself during Vietnam. So these models are in scale, which makes it very easy to compare them to one another, and it makes them great for things like recognition training. Now, you've all seen recognition flashcards. In fact, we sell them in our gift shop. We'll put a link in the description below. They make these for aircraft and for ships, and they're just side profile silhouettes. However, if you're on the bridge of your submarine or your battleship and you see a ship coming at you, it might not be a perfect side profile. And sometimes figuring out the bearing of that ship is critically important. What direction is it traveling in? Because that's going to have a lot to do with where you're aiming your torpedo and your shells. So this ship at this angle looks very different from broadside on or from stern on. Ooh, look at that fat aft. It's a very different profile, and how do you tell the difference between that one and here's a South Dakota class battleship like Massachusetts or Alabama that have been preserved as museums, and they have very similar stern structures. Same width, same single gun turret, fire control there with a smokestack in front of it. So you got to get good at recognizing the type of ship that you're shooting at. One of the critical things in range finding and fire control is you have to know how long the target is, so you can tell if it's this big in my rangefinder, then it's this far away. Well, obviously, these two similar ships have very, very different lengths, and if you see this one from astern and you think that's an Iowa-class battleship, it's 900 feet long, so it's got to be this far away, your shells are going to be landing way short because it's actually significantly shorter and significantly further away than you initially thought. So these models were made in great numbers during World War II. They often came in wooden boxed sets. So you'd have, and it was often an entire country, one ship of each class from that country in each box. So if you're going to the Pacific to fight the Japanese, you might get an American set and a Japanese set. And then one thing I've heard about happening on submarines in particular, where you're doing a lot of this range finding and determining the bearing optically through a periscope as opposed to using big range finders and computers like you do on New Jersey, is you could take your target ship and put it on a little turntable with all the bearings on it, and one guy can turn it to a certain bearing, and another guy uncovers his eyes and looks at it and says, All right, that's a South Dakota class battleship, and it is at bearing, I don't know, 120 maybe? And then you can practice this repeatedly. Often on submarines, it's the officers in the wardroom. So at the wardroom table, just going through this repeatedly, who's looking through the periscope and determining this bearing, the class of the ship, and therefore the size and the range of it. These models are interesting because during the war, you've got all of these service members overseas who played with these. And then post-war, the country is retooling. These guys come home, and they've got a lot more free time on their hands. They're not sitting in a trench or on a war patrol or anything like that. So there develops a market for models like this. And around the same time, tabletop wargaming becomes a pretty common hobby. So 1/1200 scale is a very common scale for those types of wargaming. Oftentimes, the same companies that were producing these during the war for the government, they've already got the molds. They might even have some surplus stock left at the end. They just go straight into producing these for the civilian market. And that's where Alnavco can trace their heritage back to the companies that were selling these during the war. This collection is very cool because, obviously during the war, they made molds of all of these World War II ships that were in existence. So how do you keep innovating and developing new things to get people to buy this product? Well, there were a ton of designs that were produced that were never built. So many of the ships in this collection represent never were designs, and those are a lot of the ones that Wayne Smith has worked on over the years. So for example, if you remember the blueprint videos we shot at Naval Institute Press, I think this is my drawer, yes, we talked about a Gibbs & Cox design for a hybrid battleship aircraft carrier. Here it is modeled. And then we had a second video about, I think it was Design C or Design D, which was a pure battleship. Well, guess where the Naval Institute got those from? Wayne Smith donated them from his and Summerall's collection to Naval Institute Press, and they had them. It is our intention to use these models in future displays, having scale models of both ships that existed and ships that were part of the design process of, say, Iowa-class battleships is very compelling for future exhibits. The problem is, and you can see just how many drawers there are and how many models there are in a drawer. First, before we put these out on display, we've got to go through and catalog them and accession them into our collection. The museum doesn't just accept any model. There are so many models out there that if everybody who showed up with their model collection or their deceased husband's model collection or something like that, we would quickly run out of room for storing these. So our collections management plan that dictates what we're allowed to accept and what we can't limits us in what types of models we can build. Somebody who's a master model builder like Wayne Smith, we can collect from their collection. And when we do that, we work with the donor and we fill out a deed of unconditional gift form that then transfers ownership of these models that he created to the museum for us to use. Once that is done, we've got to go through and catalog these, and Wayne's been very helpful in this process in that he had a full catalog of what the models were in his collection. And so we're just matching those up and saying, all right, we got this, and we have to put it into a computer database. We used Past Perfect 5 here at the museum to catalog all of our collection. And that includes a picture, a description of the thing written down. Because, all right, I tell a collections assistant, hey, I want to use the New Jersey 1968 configuration in this exhibit. Go get it for me. Well, obviously that is, no, that's 1945. No, that's the 1980s. There's a preliminary design for the Montana. Oh, finally, here it is. So it's important that we have pictures of what exactly it is, where it is stored, that it would be in drawer 1 of this shelf or on a shelf in our collection space, whatever the case is, and all of that information. And then, all right, I've taken this out for the exhibit. The next person goes to find this model, and it's not where it's supposed to be. Well, we now have to recatalog it in the book that it has been removed for the Battleship New Jersey exhibit in this room, and it is on this display case so that we can actually find it. And these are just some of the curatorial basics that we have to work with here at the museum. So, yes, many of these are going to go out on display in different exhibits over the next couple of years, but we're still working this winter, and it may even take longer than that, to get these all cataloged and ready to go out. So, my question for you today, have you built any models? Do you do any wargaming? Let us know about what you do. I haven't messed around with the 1/1200s myself. I've played Axis and Allies War at Sea in 1/1800 scale, and I've been building models ever since I was a little kid. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to continue donating to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about us and our channel. Thanks for watching.